to do a Kegel correctly. We're often told postpartum that Kegels are an important part of our recovery, but nobody ever explains how to do one correctly. So here I am to help you. First up, I'm Katrina Oakley and I'm a postpartum corrective exercise specialist. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get notified when I post new videos. So what exactly is a Kegel? Well, it's when we contract our pelvic floor muscles and we bring them together and then we suck them up. But you might have heard cues such as stop pee. I want to tell you that our pelvic floor actually has 4 quadrants. So when you just think about stopping pee, you're only working the front of your pelvic floor. We have the front of the pelvic floor, the back of the pelvic floor, and the sides of our pelvic floor. Our muscles actually go in multiple directions, not just front, back, and up, down, but also to the side laterally and diagonally. So it's important when thinking about exercises, Kegels, or any postpartum exercises that we're working all of the muscles in our pelvic floor. When we do a Kegel, I want you to think of bringing the front and the back together. I like to include a clitoris hood knot. So just thinking about that knotting of the clitoris hood there, and then sucking up, like you're sucking up a blueberry through a straw through your vagina. For men, that cue doesn't really make too much sense. So one of the cues I often use for men is to think about what happens when you jump into cold water and you get that shriveling sensation. That's the same idea. You also still have that back of the pelvic floor that you want to think about. Often a great cue for that is stopping a fart if you're in an elevator. The one thing you need to be aware of is your glutes aren't part of the pelvic floor. They surround it, yes, but they're not part of it. So when we are doing a Kegel, we don't want to feel our glutes squeezing as well. Try to focus on just that very subtle motion of stopping and pulling up, or that shrinkage. One of the reasons that we are told to do Kegels is because of the exercise benefits of them. We are trying to strengthen those pelvic floor muscles that got stretched and weakened during the birthing process or during the pregnancy process. Just be aware that doing Kegels in isolation doesn't really help us in everyday movements, and sometimes it can cause more harm than benefits. So you need to be aware if you should be doing Kegels or not doing Kegels. Your pelvic floor may be loose and weak or tight. It can also be tight and weak. Now, to understand what type of pelvic floor issues that you may have, you really need to see a pelvic floor PT so that they can do an internal assessment to help you. Because if you are tight, then you don't want to be doing Kegels. Some of the signs of overdoing Kegels are pain with intercourse, needing to urinate more frequently, stop starting your pee, needing to go after you've just been, so that double voiding. Your direction of your pee moving to one side versus going straight down is an indication that maybe one side of your pelvic floor is tighter than the other. Leaking is also a sign of an overly tight pelvic floor, not just a weak pelvic floor. Because when your pelvic floor is high, because it's tight and lifted, then as your bladder fills up, it actually presses down onto those pelvic floor muscles, making that brain trigger saying that you need to go to the toilet. Or if you suddenly jump when your pelvic floor is tight and you have a little bit of liquid in that bladder there, then it's going to press down on it and everything comes out. So leaking isn't an indication that you are super loose in the pelvic floor and that you need to do more Kegels. Leaking could be an indication of either. Again, a reason why understanding whether you are tight or loose and weak is so important. Kegel exercises are easiest done on an empty bladder, at least to begin with, and there are 3 types that you should be looking to do. We're wanting to do what I call a 4x4 Kegel, which means you're inhaling through your nose for a count of 4 and then slowly exhaling for a count of 4 with that Kegel. Now, that one is more of a breathing exercise. It's an ideal one for everybody because you're focusing on relaxing the pelvic floor on the inhale and then contracting the pelvic floor on the exhale. This makes it a little bit more functional than a traditional Kegel that you might have been told to do every stop sign or whenever you're stopped at the traffic lights, because you're incorporating it with your breath, which means that you can then use that in everyday activities. Other Kegels that you're looking to do are quick flicks and long endurance Kegels. So that's when you are holding that Kegel for a count of 10. Once you can contract your pelvic floor and feel it relax your pelvic floor, then you may want to incorporate it into other exercises, such as glute bridges, knee lifts, squats, deadlifts, and any other exercises you are doing. The one thing I like to warn people is that once your pelvic floor works with your breath, so as you exhale, you feel it naturally lift slightly, and as you inhale, you feel it naturally relax, then ideally you would never have to think about your pelvic floor again. So I don't want you to cue it all the time. Instead, let your body naturally respond to your breath as you do your exercises. I hope that this was informative for you. And again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and you may be interested in this video, which will help you more with your breathing exercises.